"Please don't send me back," she cried. One night changed the rancher forever. The sun was slowly setting over the vast stretches of the ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. The gentle wind carried the earthy smell of hay and soil, mixed with the faint scent of the grazing cattle. Billo the rancher moved steadily along the fence lines, inspecting the animals. His hands were strong and rough from years of working with horses and cattle, but his eyes were soft and careful. Every detail mattered to him: the health of his animals, the safety of the land, and the rhythm of life on the ranch that he had built from scratch. He had lived a simple life, disciplined and quiet. Days started before the sun rose and ended long after it had set. The work was hard, and loneliness often accompanied him in the empty stretches of land, but he was content in his own way. The ranch was his world, and he knew it intimately. Every horse knew his voice, every cow his footsteps. But tonight, there was a strange unease in the air, something he could not place. As Billo walked along the path near the main gate, he noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it was just the shadows of the trees swaying in the evening breeze, but then he saw her. A young woman, small and fragile, stood at the edge of the property. Her clothes were torn, and her hair was tangled and damp from the evening dew. She looked as if she had been running for a long time, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Billo paused, his instincts telling him to be cautious. It was unusual for anyone to approach the ranch, especially at this hour. Yet there was something in her posture that spoke of desperation rather than malice. She looked at him and spoke, her voice trembling but desperate. "Please, don't send me back," she said. Her words barely rose above the whisper of the wind, but they carried a weight that made Billo's chest tighten. He stepped closer, his own heart beating faster than usual. "Who are you?" he asked gently. "Why are you here?" The young woman's lips trembled as she tried to answer, but the words caught in her throat. She looked around nervously, as if expecting someone or something to appear at any moment. Finally, she managed to speak again. "My name is Sarah. I had no place to go. Please just let me stay until morning. I can't go back." Her voice broke at the last words, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Billo's first instinct was caution. He had heard stories of strangers causing trouble, of people who brought danger to quiet homes. Yet when he looked at her, he saw more than fear. He saw truth, vulnerability, and an urgent need for help. His hands loosened from the rope he had been holding, and he took a slow step closer. "You'll be safe here for now," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "Come inside. We'll talk more once you are rested." Sarah hesitated, but the trust in his tone seemed to reach her. She nodded slightly and followed him toward the main house. The night air was cool against her skin, and she shivered as they walked. Billo noticed and offered her his coat, which she accepted with a small, grateful smile. There was a quietness between them, a space filled with unspoken questions and emotions. Billo was cautious, but felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility. He realized that helping her meant more than just offering shelter. It was about protecting someone in genuine need. Inside the ranch house, the warmth hit them immediately. The cozy smell of cooking and wood smoke filled the room. Billo led her to a chair by the fireplace and brought a cup of warm tea. Sarah's hands shook as she held the cup, sipping slowly, her eyes never leaving Billo's face. There was a story in those eyes, one that spoke of fear, of pain, and of courage. Billo sat opposite her, trying to make sense of everything. "Sarah, tell me what happened," he said gently. She took a deep breath and began, her voice low and hesitant. She spoke of a life that had been harsh and unforgiving, of people who had turned against her, and of threats that forced her to flee. Every word made Billo's heart ache. He had faced his own share of hardships, but her story was raw and immediate. Hours passed as she spoke, and Billo listened without interruption. He realized that the night had changed something inside him. The loneliness of the ranch, which he had accepted as a natural state, suddenly felt heavier. There was a need to act, to make a difference, to protect. And Sarah, in her courage to escape and seek help, had awakened something he had not felt in years. Outside, the storm had begun. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled through the trees. Lightning lit up the sky, casting shadows across the room. Sarah flinched at every crash of thunder, and Billo reached instinctively for the blankets to wrap around her. He felt a protective urge unlike anything he had experienced before. "I'll make sure you're safe tonight," he said quietly. "No one will harm you here." Sarah looked at him, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and hope. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of security, however fragile. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was almost lost in the roar of the storm, but Bill heard it clearly. As the night deepened, they sat by the fire in silence. Bill tended to her as best as he could, bringing warm water, adjusting blankets, and making sure she was comfortable. Sarah gradually relaxed, her body sinking into the chair as exhaustion overtook fear. The storm outside seemed to mirror the tension and uncertainty of their situation, but inside there was a fragile calm. Bill could not sleep. He kept thinking about the choices he had made, the instincts that had led him to help her, and the unknown consequences of his actions. But in the quiet moments, he realized something important. Some decisions are not about safety or caution, they are about doing what is right. And tonight, doing what was right meant protecting Sarah. Hours later, Sarah awoke briefly, startled by a flash of lightning. Bill noticed immediately and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "It's all right, you're safe," he said softly. She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter around her. There was trust in that small gesture, a connection that had formed in just a few hours but felt like it had existed for much longer. The night dragged on, each thunderclap reminding them of the dangers that lurked outside. Yet inside the ranch house, a bond was forming. Bill understood that Sarah's plea, "Please don't send me back," was more than a request for shelter. It was a cry for understanding, for compassion, and for protection. And he knew deep down that he could not turn her away. As the first hints of dawn began to touch the sky, the storm started to subside. The rain slowed to a gentle patter and the wind calmed. Sarah, still wrapped in blankets, looked around the room, her eyes soft but alert. Bill sat across from her, exhausted but relieved. The night had been long, filled with uncertainty and fear, but it had also been a night of awakening. Neither spoke immediately, but the silence was comfortable, filled with a shared understanding. Something had changed between them. The rancher, who had always lived a solitary life, felt the stirrings of responsibility and care for someone other than himself. The young woman, who had faced fear and danger, felt a fragile but undeniable sense of hope. And so the first night ended, not with grand declarations or dramatic events, but with quiet moments of trust, compassion, and connection. It was a night that would be remembered, the night that began to change both of their lives forever. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting soft golden hues across the ranch. The storm had passed, leaving the earth fresh and glistening, the scent of rain mixed with the familiar smells of hay and soil. Birds began to stir, singing their morning songs, while the cattle slowly wandered to graze in the open fields. Inside the ranch house, Bill moved quietly, careful not to disturb Sarah, who was still asleep on the chair near the fireplace, wrapped in blankets. He studied her sleeping face, noticing the faint lines of worry etched across her forehead. The night had been long, filled with tension, and he realized that Sarah had endured more than most could imagine. He wondered how someone so young could carry such fear, yet still show a flicker of courage that had brought her all the way to his doorstep. Bill had always respected strength, whether in a horse that refused to be tamed or in the land that resisted cultivation. But tonight he recognized strength of a different kind, the quiet, persistent courage of a human heart determined to survive. Sarah stirred, blinking her eyes slowly as she awakened to the soft light. The events of the previous night flooded back, and her heart raced for a moment, remembering the storm, the fear, and the protection she had found here. She looked at Bill, who was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, and a sense of relief washed over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt that she was not alone. Bill noticed her awake and smiled gently. "Good morning, you slept well?" he asked. His voice was calm, steady, and comforting, unlike the harsh tones she had heard in her life before. Sarah nodded, her eyes still carrying a hint of unease. I think so, thank you," she said softly. The simple words were loaded with gratitude, more profound than any grand gesture could have expressed. Breakfast was quiet at first, filled with the soft sounds of the morning, the sizzle of eggs on the pan, the hum of the stove, the occasional clink of utensils. Bill prepared her a plate of warm food, encouraging her to eat slowly, while he himself ate sparingly, lost in thought. He realized that providing food and shelter was only the beginning. Sarah needed more than that. She needed reassurance, guidance, and the courage to trust again. Once the meal was over, Bill led Sarah to the porch, where the ranch stretched endlessly under the brightening sky. The land was beautiful in its simplicity, rolling pastures bordered by sturdy fences, the stables standing proudly nearby. Horses grazed calmly, some lifting their heads to watch the newcomers. The gentle rustling of the trees and the distant lowing of cows filled the air with a peaceful rhythm. "Look around," Bill said quietly. "This is a safe place. Nothing will harm you here. You can stay as long as you need." Sarah's eyes wandered over the fields, taking in the serenity of the ranch. It was unlike anywhere she had ever been. The openness, the calm, and the quiet discipline of the land made her feel as if she could breathe freely for the first time in months. A small smile touched her lips, fragile but genuine. "It's beautiful," she said. "I didn't think a place like this existed anymore." Bill nodded. "It does, and now you are part of it, even if only for a while, but I want you to understand something. Life here is not easy. The work is hard and nothing is given freely, but if you are willing, you can learn and perhaps in time find your strength again." Sarah looked at him, a mixture of curiosity and caution in her eyes. "My strength, I don't even know if I have any left," she whispered. Bill shook his head gently. "You do. I saw it last night. It takes a great deal of courage to run from danger and seek help. That's more strength than most people will ever show in a lifetime." His words were firm, but there was warmth behind them, a quiet encouragement that began to pierce the walls she had built around herself. As the morning progressed, Bill guided Sarah through the daily routines of the ranch. They started with the horses, feeding them and checking for injuries. Bill demonstrated how to handle them gently but firmly, and Sarah followed his instructions carefully. She had never worked with animals so closely, but she discovered an unexpected connection with the horses, who seemed to sense her kindness and fearlessness in spite of her trembling hands. Next, they visited the cattle. Bill showed her how to check the animals for illness or injury and how to ensure they had enough water and food. Sarah listened intently, asking questions and learning quickly. With every task, she grew a little more confident, and Bill could see the change in her posture and the determination slowly replacing fear in her eyes. During a brief break, they sat under a large tree near the barn. Sarah picked at the grass nervously, unsure what to say, while Bill watched her silently. Finally, she gathered the courage to speak. "Bill, why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Bill looked at her, his gaze steady. "Because it is the right thing to do. And because I can. Life is hard enough without turning away someone who truly needs help." He paused, then added softly, "And maybe I needed someone to remind me of what really matters too." Sarah's eyes widened slightly, surprised by his honesty. She felt a strange warmth at his words, a connection she had never felt with anyone before. In that moment, she realized that the ranch was more than a physical place. It was a refuge, a sanctuary for hearts that had been broken or lost. And Bill was not just a rancher. He was a man with a quiet, unwavering moral compass, capable of guiding her through the storm of her own life. The afternoon passed with more work, and Sarah discovered muscles she had forgotten she had, as well as a growing sense of pride in accomplishing tasks she once thought impossible. The rhythm of the ranch, the animals, and the land seemed to heal something inside her. She felt safer, stronger, and more alive than she had in months. As the sun began to dip again toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the fields, Sarah shared fragments of her story. She spoke of the dangers she had faced, of the people who had turned against her, and the loneliness that had haunted her every step. Bill listened carefully, never interrupting, offering only small gestures of comfort, a hand on her shoulder, a reassuring nod, or a quiet word of encouragement. "You've been through a lot," Bill said finally, when she paused to catch her breath. "But surviving it, running toward safety, and being here now, that's proof that you are stronger than you realize." Sarah swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. "I've been afraid for so long, I don't even remember what it feels like to be safe." Bill's gaze softened. "Safety isn't just about being away from danger. It's about trusting someone, believing in yourself, and finding a place where you belong. That's what you are finding here." Evening fell, and the ranch was bathed in a warm, golden glow. The animals were settling down, the stables quiet and the fields serene. Bill led Sarah to the guest room, a small but comfortable space where she could rest. He placed a blanket over her and gave her a simple but meaningful instruction. "Rest now. Tomorrow is another day. And I promise you will be safe." Sarah lay down, feeling a sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to relax completely, trusting Bill and the sanctuary he had offered her. She realized that while the world outside had been cruel and unforgiving, there was still kindness, strength, and protection to be found, even in unexpected places. Bilal, on the other hand, stayed awake for a while longer. He reflected on the events of the past 2 days, the storm, her arrival, her fear, and her courage. Something about Sarah had touched him deeply. It wasn't just her need for protection. It was her will to survive, her bravery in the face of danger, and the hope that remained in her despite everything. He realized that this night and the day that followed had awakened something within him too, a deeper understanding of compassion, responsibility, and the power of human connection. As darkness fully enveloped the ranch once again, Bilal felt a quiet determination. He would protect Sarah, not just for one night but for as long as she needed. He understood that the bond forming between them was not just about sheltering a frightened woman. It was about guiding her toward safety, helping her find strength, and perhaps, in time, helping both of them heal from their past wounds. And so, as the ranch settled into the stillness of the night, a fragile but undeniable bond had begun to grow. The events of one stormy night had transformed into the beginning of trust, courage, and a shared journey that would shape both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. More after the storm. Birds chirped softly, and the cattle grazed lazily under the warm morning sun. But inside the ranch house, tension was quietly building. Bilal sensed it first, a faint unease that stirred in the pit of his stomach. Something was not right. Sarah, who had slept peacefully through most of the night, awoke suddenly, her eyes wide with alarm. She had heard a sound, a faint but distinct knock at the main door. Her body froze, and she clutched the blanket around her tightly. Memories of the danger she had fled from the night before flashed vividly in her mind, making her heart race. Bilal noticed her tension immediately. "It's all right," he said calmly, rising from his chair. "Stay here." He walked toward the door, his steps deliberate and steady. Despite the calm in his voice, his mind was alert. The knock had been polite, almost hesitant, but it carried the unmistakable weight of purpose. When he opened the door, a man stood there, dressed simply but with an air of authority that immediately set Bilal on edge. His eyes searched the property, lingering on Sarah as if confirming her presence. The man's voice was firm. "I'm looking for Sarah, she must come with me." Sarah gasped softly from behind Bilal, her fear returning with full force. "Please, don't send me back," she whispered, her voice trembling. Bilal's mind raced. He had prepared for many challenges on the ranch, but this was different. This was not a wild animal or a storm. This was a human threat, and it carried both danger and consequence. Yet he knew he could not let Sarah go with this man, not without understanding who he was and why he demanded her return. "This woman is under my protection now," Bilal said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You are not taking her anywhere, she is safe here." The man's eyes narrowed. "I have my orders, she belongs to me legally, you cannot refuse me." Bilal's hands clenched at his sides, but his expression remained calm. "Orders or no orders, she will not leave this ranch against her will. If you want to resolve this, we will do it properly, but not with threats or force." The tension in the air was almost tangible. Sarah peeked around the corner, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. She had never seen anyone confront danger with such composure. Bilal's presence gave her a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she could survive this encounter without returning to fear. The man, frustrated but restrained by Bilal's unwavering stance, took a step closer. "You don't understand. If I fail, there will be consequences. She must come with me now." Bilal shook his head. "I understand perfectly. And I also understand that you will not take her by force. If you try, you will answer for it. This ranch is my responsibility. Her safety is my responsibility." Sarah, though frightened, found courage rising within her. She stepped forward slightly, her voice trembling but firm. "I won't go with you, I can't, I won't." The man's eyes widened in surprise. He had not expected resistance from her, especially not this strong and unexpected courage. Bilal's steady gaze reinforced her determination. She realized in that moment that fear did not have to control her. She had allies and she had a choice. The confrontation became tense. Words were exchanged, each side testing the other's resolve. Bilal remained calm, his posture firm and unyielding, while Sarah's quiet determination grew with every passing moment. The man, realizing that negotiation was failing, made a sudden move to grab her. Bilal reacted instinctively, stepping between them. "Stop," he shouted, his voice commanding and full of authority. In one swift motion, he grabbed the man's arm and pushed him back, his strength and skill surprising both the intruder and Sarah. The standoff escalated as Bilal guided Sarah to safety, moving her toward the interior of the house while keeping the man at a distance. Sarah's heart raced, but she found her own courage in the midst of chaos. She remembered Bilal's earlier words about strength, and she acted decisively, helping him block the door and keeping the intruder distracted. The two of them moved in perfect coordination, an unspoken understanding forming between them in the heat of danger. The struggle was intense but brief. Bilal's experience with difficult situations and Sarah's determination to remain free allowed them to manage the threat without serious harm. The intruder, realizing he could not succeed, finally retreated, leaving them standing together, hearts pounding but safe. Once the danger had passed, Bilal and Sarah took a moment to catch their breath. The storm outside had mirrored the tension of the morning confrontation, but now a calm settled over the ranch. Sarah looked at Bilal with awe and gratitude. I can't believe that just happened," she whispered. "Thank you for protecting me." Bilal nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "You helped too," he said quietly. "You were brave, you faced fear and didn't let it control you. That takes courage more than most people will ever show." Sarah's chest swelled with a mix of relief and pride. For the first time in her life, she realized that she was not helpless, that she could take action to protect herself, and that trust in the right person could be a source of strength. The experience, though frightening, had awakened something inside her, a resilience she had long forgotten. As the day progressed, Bilal and Sarah worked together quietly, tending to the ranch and its animals. There was a new understanding between them, a bond forged through shared danger and mutual respect. Sarah felt safe, but she also felt empowered, learning that she could face challenges without fear dominating her every move. Bilal observed her closely. He had always been self-reliant, accustomed to handling problems alone, but Sarah's courage had surprised him. Her determination to stand up to danger had reminded him of something he had nearly forgotten. That strength could be found in unexpected places, and that people were capable of more than he sometimes believed. The afternoon sun shone brightly, casting long shadows over the fields. Bilal led Sarah to the stables, showing her how to care for the horses and check for any injuries. The animals, sensing her growing confidence, responded to her touch with calmness and trust. Sarah's connection with the horses grew stronger with each passing moment, and Bilal could see her confidence returning, piece by piece. They then walked to the cattle, checking their health and making sure they had water. Sarah asked questions, listened carefully, and began to take pride in her growing knowledge. The ranch, once overwhelming, was becoming familiar to her. Each task completed was a small victory, each interaction with the animals a step toward rebuilding her inner strength. As the day came to a close, Bilal and Sarah sat on the porch together, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, and safe. The earlier tension had faded, leaving a calm sense of accomplishment and trust. Sarah leaned back slightly, feeling the warmth of the evening sun on her face and the protection of Bilal nearby. "You know," Bilal said quietly, breaking the silence, "tonight made me realize something. Protecting someone isn't just about keeping them safe from danger. It's about helping them find courage, helping them see that they can survive and thrive even after fear. You reminded me of that." Sarah looked at him, eyes wide with surprise and understanding. I never thought of it that way. I was just trying to stay alive." "And that," Bilal said softly, "is more than enough. It shows strength, courage, and resilience. You have it even if you didn't see it before." The stars began to appear in the sky, twinkling softly over the ranch. Sarah felt a quiet sense of hope, a feeling she had not known in a long time. She realized that the events of the day, though terrifying, had also given her something priceless, a sense of empowerment, trust, and belonging. Bilal, watching her, felt a deep sense of responsibility and pride. He had protected her physically, yes, but more importantly, he had helped her begin to reclaim her own strength. Their bond, formed in the face of danger, was growing stronger, built on trust, respect, and shared courage. As the night settled in, the ranch became still. The animals rested, the wind whispered through the trees, and Bilal and Sarah prepared for the evening. They both knew that life was not without challenges, but they had faced danger together and emerged stronger. They had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. In the quiet of the ranch, surrounded by the land and animals that both defined and sustained their lives, a new chapter had begun. Sarah had faced danger and survived, discovering her own strength along the way. Bill had witnessed her courage and found a renewed sense of purpose in protecting and guiding her. Together, they had faced the storm, and together they would face whatever came next. The morning sun rose gently over the ranch, casting golden light across the fields and waking the animals with its warmth. The air was fresh after the night's calm, carrying the sweet smell of grass and earth, mingling with the faint scent of hay from the stables. Bill moved steadily through his routine, but today felt different. The events of the past days, the storm, Sarah's arrival, and the confrontation, had changed something in him. The ranch, once a place of simple work and solitude, now carried the weight and promise of connection. Sarah awoke with the soft rays of sunlight on her face. She felt safer here than she had anywhere in a long time. The night had been quiet, and for the first time in months, she could breathe without fear pressing on her chest. She stretched slowly, noticing how comfortable the room felt, the blankets soft and warm, and the sense of security lingering in the air. When she walked into the kitchen, Bill was already preparing breakfast. He glanced at her and smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made her feel welcome and understood. "Good morning," he said. "Sleep well?" Sarah nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I did, thank you. I think I finally feel safe." Bill handed her a plate of warm food. "Good. Eat well, you'll need your strength today. There's work to do, as always." His tone was gentle but firm, a balance of guidance and care that she had begun to trust. As they ate, they spoke quietly about the day ahead. Sarah's eyes wandered toward the fields, the horses grazing peacefully, the cattle slowly wandering past. The ranch felt alive, a place of order and calm, yet filled with possibility. Bill noticed her glance and nodded toward the animals. "You've been brave," he said softly. "Today we continue. You've learned much, but there is more to see, more to do. The work here will help you regain confidence, and in time your strength will return fully." Sarah felt a flicker of hope in her heart. The tasks that had seemed overwhelming at first now felt achievable. She wanted to prove to herself that she could take on these challenges, that she could be strong in her own right, not just protected by Bill. After breakfast, they moved to the stables. Bill guided her as she brushed the horses, feeding them carefully, checking their hooves, and tending to their coats. Sarah listened to his instructions attentively, her hands growing steadier with each task. The horses, sensing her calm and growing confidence, responded with gentle nuzzles and soft whinnies. She realized that these creatures, once intimidating, had become her allies, reflecting the patience and care she was learning to give herself. As the morning wore on, Bill showed her the cattle. They checked for health issues, ensured the water troughs were full, and monitored the animals' well-being. Sarah asked questions eagerly, absorbing every piece of knowledge. She marveled at how much work went into maintaining the ranch, and how the land, animals, and people worked together in harmony. She began to feel a sense of pride in her ability to help, a feeling that had been foreign to her for a long time. During a brief break, they sat under a large oak tree near the barn. Sarah gazed at the horizon, the vast expanse of fields stretching endlessly, and felt a quiet peace she had never known. "Bill," she said softly, "I never thought I would feel normal again. Safe, calm. I didn't think life like this still existed for people like me." Bill's eyes softened. "Life can be harsh, Sarah, but there are places and people that make it better. You found one of them now, and you found strength you didn't know you had." Sarah looked at him, gratitude and something deeper in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You don't need to," Bill replied. "Seeing you grow stronger, seeing you trust again, that is enough for me." His words carried sincerity and quiet pride. Sarah felt a warm weight in her chest, a mixture of relief, trust, and hope. The afternoon passed with more work on the ranch. Sarah cleaned the stables, fed the animals, and helped repair fences along the property. Each task, while simple, became a step toward rebuilding her confidence and sense of self. Bill observed her carefully, noting how she carried herself with growing assurance. She had faced danger, survived, and was learning to thrive, not just exist. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the fields, Bill and Sarah stood near the horse pasture. The sky glowed with gold and pink, a perfect reflection of the calm and hope settling between them. Sarah reached out to gently stroke one of the horses, who nuzzled her hand in response. She realized that the ranch was not just a safe place physically, it was a sanctuary for her mind and spirit. Bill watched quietly, a sense of satisfaction in his chest. The events of the past days, the storm, her arrival, the confrontation, had changed both of them. He had protected her, yes, but more than that, he had witnessed her courage, her determination, and her ability to reclaim strength. In return, she had reminded him of what mattered most: compassion, trust, and the power of human connection. As evening fell, Bill led Sarah to the porch, where they sat together watching the sky turn from gold to deep purple. The ranch was quiet now, the animals settled, and the air cool and gentle. Sarah leaned back, letting the peace wash over her. She realized how far she had come, from fear and uncertainty to courage and trust. The ranch had become more than a refuge. It was now a place of renewal where she could rediscover herself. Bill broke the silence. "You've faced much, Sarah, and yet here you are, stronger than before. You've learned, adapted, and survived. That is something to be proud of." Sarah smiled softly. "I've learned from you," she admitted. "You've shown me that it's possible to trust, to be safe, and to be strong. I didn't think I could ever feel that way again." Bill's eyes met hers, and in them she saw something she hadn't expected, a quiet respect, care, and perhaps something deeper. "Trust is earned," he said softly. "And you've earned it, Sarah, in more ways than you realize." As night approached, they prepared for the evening, settling in by the fireplace once more. The warmth of the fire reflected the sense of security that had grown between them. Sarah felt a deep gratitude for Bill, not only for protecting her from danger, but for helping her reclaim her courage, confidence, and sense of hope. In the quiet moments, Sarah reflected on the journey of the past days. She had fled danger, found refuge, faced threats, and survived. She had learned the value of trust, the importance of courage, and the power of human connection. And she had discovered that even after fear, even after pain, life could be beautiful, calm, and full of hope again. Bill, sitting nearby, reflected as well. He had lived a life of routine and solitude, but Sarah's presence had awakened something within him. He had been reminded of the importance of compassion, of protecting those in need, and of finding fulfillment not just in work, but in helping someone else reclaim their life. He realized that one night, one choice, and one act of courage had changed everything for both of them. As the stars appeared in the sky, twinkling gently above the ranch, Sarah and Bill sat together in quiet understanding. Words were not necessary. The shared experience, the trust, and the growth they had witnessed in each other spoke volumes. The ranch was no longer just a place of work. It was a place of healing, of safety, and of beginnings. Sarah felt a calm she had never known before. She could sleep, work, learn, and even dream. She could face the future with courage and hope, knowing that she had allies, strength, and protection. And Bill, once content with solitude, had found a renewed sense of purpose in guiding and protecting someone who had shown him the power of human resilience and trust. The night deepened, and the ranch settled into peaceful stillness. The animals rested, the wind whispered softly through the trees, and the land seemed to exhale in quiet satisfaction. Sarah, finally comfortable and secure, drifted to sleep with a small, hopeful smile on her lips. Bill watched over her for a moment longer, reflecting on how much had changed in just a few days. One stormy night, one choice to help, one act of courage, it had all led them here to a place of safety, growth, and quiet happiness. And in the calm of the ranch, under the soft glow of the stars, it was clear. One night had changed everything. For Sarah, it was a new beginning, a chance to reclaim her life. For Bill, it was a reminder that courage, compassion, and human connection could transform even the quietest, most disciplined life. Together, they had faced fear, discovered strength, and opened the door to a future filled with trust, hope, and endless possibility. The ranch, once a place of solitude and routine, had become a sanctuary for hearts that had been tested and strengthened. And so life moved forward, steady, hopeful, and brighter than it had ever been before.